Hello, everyone. Welcome to Natty News, the nattiest news show in the world. I'm joined once again with my wonderful co-host, the modern day Adonis, Pat Wu. Pat, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I had to get some polio upgrade shots for school, so I kind of feel like when I got the other vaccine, but other
Oh.
than that, doing great.
Well, Pat, we have another lovely guest that might be up against you as the modern day Adonis. We have Janelle. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's Janella.
Oh,
There's an A.
Janella, apologies about that.
No problem. It happens a lot.
Uh,
Anwar's an amazing host, but he butchers names weekly, so don't take it
If
personally.
that's his only fault, he's doing fine.
Exactly.
yeah, especially I don't know if you've heard us try to do some of the historic names. I think I'm 0 for 9 now.
What impresses me? My coach, he has all the names of all the weightlifters in weightlifting. He can name athletes from all over the world, pronounce the names correctly. He has an impeccable ability to remember the weights they lifted and all the stats about each lifter. It's really quite impressive, actually.
That's why he has a gym.
Yeah, yeah.
That's actually insane. Like, we had on someone who worked under Coach Pendley, and he was saying the same thing. Where like Coach Pendley could be like, "Hey, you remember that 120 kg snatch you did 3 weeks ago?" Like he would just
Right.
memorize that and just have all the information stirred. That's insane.
I think the most noteworthy thing we should open with is that Pat PR'd his clean. He almost fainted. He almost fainted at 138, and he made a 142 clean. So I think we need to open with that because that's just such an impressive thing. I really didn't think you had much in the tank after 138 because you got so lightheaded, and then you nailed the 142. So kudos to you, Pat. That's amazing.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, I think I came into the gym really tired and dazed, and I think it's all the stuff they jabbed in me. But I think, but we'll get into weightlifting more later. But Jay, you know how you can get into your own head, and I get into my own head too. We talk about this all the time. I
Yeah.
was so tired. I don't think I could get into my own head, so I just walked up to it. I just lifted. Didn't feel good, but there
No.
wasn't much inhibition going on. So
Yeah. Good for you though. And I think if I only weightlifted when I felt good, I would rarely lift. Like I think some of my best lifting days are the days where I really don't feel like lifting. And then the body just shows up, right?
yeah. Oh, we'll talk about your schedule and the. I don't think people realize it's I mean the reason we invited you on, like, you are one of my favorite weightlifters, and it's
Oh,
they're like, like your Tian Tao and Liu Xiaojun, they're great, but that's their job, and they do well. They're genetically gifted. They have
yeah.
everything going for them. But I mean, you really make it realistic with you've become a Masters World Champion, all while raising a daughter, you know, staying with family time, working 12 hours a day as a personal trainer,
Yeah.
and and then having this and that injuries, and also starting past 40 and doing so well. So yeah, we are very glad to have you here.
Thank you, Pat. That's huge. That's really kind. I think I sometimes get caught up in like what my next weight that I want to lift and the next comp. And really, when I sit back and just sort of take it all in, yeah, I started at 43. Who starts anything at 43, right? This sport, ideally, you start young, right? You learn those movement patterns. And I think there's so much interest in weightlifting through CrossFit. A lot of younger athletes learn the Olympic lifts in CrossFit. They start young. They're so exciting to watch, right? So to have picked up the bar at 43, it just goes to show you that a lot's possible. We're not 40 is the new 30. 40 can be the new 20. Who knows? Like I never say never anymore. I
That's
never say
so cool. And
yeah.
I mean, I was going to introduce your accolades, but I kind of want to give you the pleasure of doing that. Tell us a little bit about what you've accomplished in weightlifting. I mean, you alluded that you started, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, but tell us about some of your biggest accomplishments and your favorite lifts.
Okay, so I started because I was gifted a pair of shoes to try it by my partner. And I booked in with Jeremy once a month and I was fooling around with the bar and he's like, "Yeah, you're an ex-dancer, so you have the mobility. And you've been lifting weights for consecutive years leading up to this in the gym, so you're no stranger to lifting. So if we just put that all together and teach you the technique behind these lifts, I think you could, be less. So I dabbled for 6 months. I was doing one session a month. And then he very casually just said to me one day, you're lifting provincial record numbers right now. And I was like, what? That's huge. But never did he say, let's get you a singlet, let's sign you up. He just dropped that with me, like, hey, just so you know, you're lifting provincial numbers right now at your age and weight class. So I was sitting at 52 kilos at the time. And he said, if you could drop to 48 kilos, which was the weight class at the time, he said, you could easily wipe out the records right now. So I went and watched Kat do a competition, and I was like, okay, that's the scariest thing I've ever seen anyone do. And then it was at her second competition where I was like, you know what? I think I could do this. I want to try this. So it was August. And in May of that following year, I went to my first meet and I broke all the rules. I cut weight, which you're not supposed to do. I wore a singlet, which you're not supposed to do. They say just wear what you wear to lift.
Yeah.
And I went to nationals. I went to Masters Nationals. My first meet was in Kelowna, Canadian Masters Nationals, and I won. I won. I was working for WestJet at the time. I was working 60 hours a week. Like, I just don't know how I did this, but I cut weight from 52 kilos to 48. I weighed in at 47.7 kilos, which is insane to maintain any strength when you're doing a cut. So I followed the RP templates. Anyways, it was a great comp. I won and I got the taste of competing, and it was no looking back from that day on. Competed again a few months later. Anyhow, this past year was my 5th year. I just started my 5th year competing, and I won provincials, nationals, and worlds, all virtually, but I won all 3 comps. Actually, I won Pan Ams as well. So I won provincials, Canadian nationals, Pan American Games, and World Masters. So I was going to quit. I was going to take my shoes off like all athletes do at the end of their last lift and put them on the platform. And I thought, no, it'll always have an asterisk that says unofficial world record, unofficial winner. I don't want this asterisk. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do it live. So here we are.
Oh, we can't wait for that. That is so badass. And also, I think I'm hearing this whole story, and I'm also hearing about the fact you did like an 8% body weight cut for strength spurt. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. They say 3 to 5%. Like, I really should not have cut as much as I did, but since that meet, I've been able to hover, and they've changed the weight classes, so it's 49 now. That 1 extra kilo is awesome. And I've maintained my body weight close to competing weight. I never go past 51. I never see past 50 usually. Yeah. So I stay close to competition weight. And I think this last Worlds meet was so fantastic because I didn't have to do a water load. It was the first time that I woke up that morning, I was 49 kilos. I didn't have to water load. I've just learned tricks along the way. Like I limit high fiber eating the 24 hours before. I do a bit of a water load, but not as extreme as I was doing before. So I'm able to wake up and feel good about lifting and not feel depleted by a sauna, a hot bath, dehydration and rehydrating in the 2-hour window that I have between weigh-in and competing. Yeah. I don't have enough time to reconstitute and feel amazing. So I think staying close to competition weight has been key for me so that I can feel good on comp day, right? This old lady, I'm telling you, those water cuts are nasty. Pat, you've done one. It's horrible.
Yeah, they're not fun at all.
You feel like you're floating on water all the time, and it's just an unpleasant experience, right?
You're kind of sick. Yeah.
Yeah, nauseous, almost nauseous. But yeah, in a nutshell, in the last few years, I was going to concentrate on masters lifting only. But the truth is that I'm lifting numbers that qualify me for open meets. So I'm still doing open provincials. I'm still competing against 16-year-olds and 12-year-olds that weigh 49 kilos because I can. And I'll continue to do that as long as I can.
That's so cool. And so just to give a little perspective, so when was the first time you touched a barbell till now? So how many years in total have you been lifting?
So I started January, exactly 5 years ago. So this coming January is when I first touched a barbell. 5 years ago. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was in August of that year that Jeremy said, let's compete. So I started lifting 5 days a week. Before that, it was like one session every 3 weeks, maybe once a month. So August of that year, so 4.5 years ago, he said, let's do 5 days a week. Let's get your strength up. And then it was that following May that I competed at Masters Nationals in Kelowna. Yeah, that's how it worked. Yeah. And then basically every 3 months or so, I have a meet, and I have been consistently competing. There was basically been 4 years of competing quite consistently since then. So my next meet is November coming up, the 5th, Island Invitational. It'll be our first live meet in 2 years. Like our
I'll be
last
there.
live meet. Yeah. Woohoo! Awesome. The whole team's going. And I'm going to
Let's
Yeah.
be loading and officiating for the first time. So when I'm not competing, I've volunteered my name so that I can load bars and assist with the officiating.
man,
Call my
that's
elbows.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. If a friend of mine's lifting, you've got to be so honest about that. Yeah, there's no playing favorites, that's for sure.
yeah. Don't give
Yo.
Pat any push outs. Don't give him any handicaps. And no, that's awesome. And I just want to go a little bit of the background. So Pat was telling me that you and him both have a background in cheer. And I'm now starting to believe cheer is the best background for Olympic weightlifting. I think forget anything else. It's all about that. So can you maybe talk a little bit about your athletic career before weightlifting?
It's
Um,
so funny. I never used the word athlete until I became a weightlifter because I was a dancer. I danced for the Vancouver Grizzlies, which is our NBA team. For the 6 years we had a team.
mhm.
And before that, I was a competitive dancer with a dance school, but I struggled in phys ed class. I hated running. I hated PE class. So I really loved the dance world. And I think dance, and I know a lot of weightlifters who have a dance background, kind of lends itself to that pursuit of exact, precise technical movement. Like we strive as dancers to perfect a movement. The big difference between dance and weightlifting is that in dance, you do it again and again and again until it was perfect. And weightlifting, you have a finite number of attempts before your body says, we're done. You need to go sit down now, go eat, because there's only so much energy we can expend. But in dance, we literally rehearse for hours to perfect one turn. Whereas in dance or in weightlifting, you have maybe a few dozen. Well, it depends what athlete you ask. You have a certain number of attempts, and then your body starts to shut down. Your nervous system says we've had enough. So, yeah, I have a dance background. I danced for the Grizzlies. I wasn't a stunter. I didn't do the cheering that he did, but it's very similar, very similar. Yeah. And I think having the mobility of a dancer, the flexibility really allowed me to enter this sport with an advantage. So although I didn't have the explosive strength of maybe another type of athlete, I had flexibility and mobility. So it was okay for me to hold a bar overhead and have a full squat, right? Without any impingement or any discomfort. So that I think a lot of athletes work on mobility. I already had that going in. So I worked on the strength side of it, and I worked up to a stronger squat and a stronger, body to sustain the lifts.
Man, that is so cool. And I know Pat and we've talked a lot about like, I kind of wish I did the opposite of what I did. Cause like when I was lifting in like high school, it was all about, I just want to get as strong as possible. But I really should have just been like focusing on mobility. Like mobility is so crucial for
Critical.
any strength sport. It
Yeah.
really is insane. And I think, yeah, like dance, gymnastics is such a good background for so much athletic pursuit. It really is.
So many excellent lifters are gymnasts or dancers. I think it really helps our sport. Yeah. And then just mental grit. Like I think there's a level of discipline and grit required to show up at the bar and work the same movements over
Mhm.
and over. You have to love that because let's be honest, a competition is 6 minutes total, right? You get split seconds and each lift is done. If you don't love
Yep.
the hours of training that go into that, if you don't love that, you're not going to make it in the sport, like you have to genuinely love that everyday grind, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that leads perfectly into our next question for you. Like, I think from the outside, anyone who's followed you on Instagram, it looks like you crush training pretty regularly and that you have amazing conditioning. the first time I stepped into loaded athletics, I think the first thing I noticed was I was here warming up and resting in between sets, and I think you had done 4 sets by the time I had gone on to my next one. And you just put the bar down and do it again and again and just go in circles around me. So, it seems that you have amazing conditioning, but I know in reality it's not that easy. What are some of the biggest hurdles that you face day to day with training?
So you mentioned my work schedule, and I am a personal trainer, which is a really physical job. And my training style is very high energy, right? I want to push my clients to get to the goals they've set. I have an incredible roster of clients who I believe outside of the gym are high achieving, really interesting and exciting people. So I really have to show up for work. I can't sit there and just put up a piece of equipment and count reps for them. It's got to be so much more. And every client has different buttons I need to push. Like Betty wants to look good naked, but Frank really just wants to get faster at his running. And Ben is a triathlete and just wants to stay injury free. So for me, it's very, it takes a lot of energy. So I am at the moment working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with most of those hours spoken for, with people holding master times with me. So with that in mind, I give myself a 2-hour window that I prioritize. I won't block any clients in that time. It's my time on the platform. It makes me a better trainer if I've had my time to train. So my biggest obstacles generally are lack of sleep, quality sleep, adequate recovery time. Maybe I haven't, nourished my body well enough. So having the energy to get through that 2-hour program, those are my day-to-day challenges. And then also, if I don't have time to get to Dynasty Gym where I've been doing my programming, or if I'm meeting Coach Jeremy, if I have to do it at my gym, I'm now in a gym that's not weightlifting gym. So I have Jen Pop walking by going, that's going to hurt her back. Oh my God, that can't be good for her knees. Or they're just simply staring and watching, which I don't mind, but it takes away from the focus of my lifting. So, Coach always reminds me at weightlifting meets, you have, random people eating their fried chicken right in front of you. People are dropping, people are talking. There's all kinds of distraction. So it is a good test in mental focus to shut all that out. But unfortunately, we're at a gym with one little platform in a general population studio. And often people walk up and interrupt with questions. So I put my AirPods in hopes that it shows that I'm not available.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the daily obstacles. Sometimes I only have an hour and 30 minutes. I have to mobilize, get my lifts in, nourish myself and get back on the gym floor. It's tight, but I try to block that time. And I don't compromise on that. I never give up my lifting for a client who really needs 12 noon. Like, sorry, if that's when I'm lifting, that's when I'm lifting. But yeah, those are my daily challenges. Just staying injury free, rested, hydrated, all those things. Like I'll get to my first snatches and I'll think, wow, I've only had one meal, or I haven't had more than one glass of water today. So those are my daily challenges, right? You know what that's all about. And I don't like to rely on pre-workout. I'm not a fan of it. I like just good old coffee. And then I just rely on, I just do what's programmed and listen to my body as I go. And then sometimes I just ignore the body altogether. And like you, I have an epic day. Like Friday, I was so tired. And it was a blank little box that Jeremy gave me. And you know what that means, right?
I like the blank box.
The blank box is a free-for-all. It's like, what have you got in the tank? And if I had gauged my energy at the beginning, I would have thought, wow, I'll be lucky to snatch 55 today. And there I was matching my lifetime best on one of my most tired days. So it was really a big day for me Friday to hit that number on a really low energy day like you had, right? So you can't listen to the body. Just warm up and show up and see what happens.
Also, for our listeners, that's 55 kilos. So that's insane that you're snatching over your body weight. Just want to let everyone know that.
Yeah,
58, I think she did.
58, yeah. So, and I tried 60 twice, and it wasn't bad. Like, it got up there. I just couldn't lock it out. So I'm really excited that 60 is around the corner. But that just means all my passwords involve my dream lift numbers. So I'm going to have to change all my passwords if I hit this
It's a
number.
little obvious. Maybe
It's
just
a
for me, because I
combination.
remember your PRs.
It's a combination of numbers, okay? It's a combo. But yeah, that's why I do it though. Every time I have to do a password, I remember those are the numbers I'm hungry for, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
No, that's
So
all.
I'm hitting a 58 snatch right now, so I know that 2 kilos is not that far for the 60. And my clean and jerk best was 75. If I can hit a 62 and a 76, I qualify for senior nationals, Pat, and I'm coming with you.
I gotta make it first, but if you're gonna
Yeah.
do it, I gotta do it with you.
Yeah. So those are the dream numbers, right? And that's the really kind of Anwar. I don't know if you know this about our sport, but the really sick side of it is that the minute we hit a PR, we're immediately thinking about the next goal. It's so bad. Like we should probably sit there and just ruminate in that success, but instead we're like, wow, if I just hit 60, 61, right? It's so
Yeah.
bad.
Hey, I think that ambition and drive is what makes you guys such good athletes and competitors. Like it
Thanks.
really is that push for getting better and better, and it's really amazing to watch. And I gotta say, your whole story is just amazing. Just starting this sport and hitting such highs in your 30s. So I'm definitely gonna be sending this over to my mom, and I know she's gonna get motivated. And what advice would you give someone who was in a similar situation 5, 6 years ago, who they're just going, maybe starting to pick up a barbell, getting interested in getting a little more fit and healthy? What would be the advice you would give them?
Okay, so, as a newbie, there's this wonderful thing that happens where you just get better and better. And pretty much every time you pick up the bar, you have a PR. And then somewhere around the 1 year mark, and that can vary athlete to athlete, Pat, you can attest to this. You stop having PRs and you plateau. Your body's like, yep, that's where we're going to stop. And
Yeah.
I think if you fall in love with the sport, just remember that it is a long game we're playing. And, I recently spoke to a very high level athlete that we have here provincially who said it takes 4 years to build a really competitive athlete, and it takes 8 years to get an elite level athlete. And so you can't think of our sport as linear in progression, and you can't be impatient. The number one thing I've learned in this sport is patience. I am an impatient person. I really struggle with inefficiency anywhere, right? And so for me, it was a real lesson in like, no, this is a long game I'm in. So it may not happen today. It may be a whole year before I get a 1 kilo improvement. And
Yeah.
I need to be okay with that, right? Or I have to be there on the platform on a Friday when Jared's saying, okay, let's max out, and it's just not happening. I have to be okay with just knowing that I can try again tomorrow. And another piece of advice might just be to really look after your body. Like I worked through a lot of injury, and in hindsight, rather than going and having it dealt with, some of it you can work through. Some of it you can work through, and you just muscle through it. But some of it just has to be dealt with. I had bone chips in my elbow, and that just completely shut me down. I had 9 weeks of no lifting. I had surgery. They removed the chips, and now I'm back to lifting. Some injuries you can't ignore. So between you and your coach, you have to make sure that you don't ignore the big red flags, but that you also don't stop the day-to-day lifting just because this is a bit achy, right? Our sport is all about achy. You're going to be achy every day. So you take your Advil and you just lift, and you look for, the big red flags, and you don't ignore them. One more thing. Any athlete who's master's level at my age, you have to acknowledge that we have hormonal changes happening, and men don't necessarily experience those changes. So I'm in what's called perimenopause. I'm stepping into menopause momentarily. I have to not ignore the fluctuations in hormone levels that will affect my lifting. So, time my PRs and my attempts around the time of the cycle when I'm going to be at my best. And I think too many
Cool.
athletes in our sport don't talk about I'm not a small version of a man. I'm actually a female, and that's a different athlete altogether. So I think it's super important to acknowledge that although it doesn't limit me, I have to be aware of my hormonal imbalances and changes, and the fact that I'm a female athlete.
That's a,
Awesome. Wow.
that's a
Yeah.
really
Go for it.
interesting point about that. Like, I didn't ever think about that, but you're right about that. And that's like a whole nother avenue that for female competitors and lifters that you don't really think about as much.
Yeah, like I don't want to make a big deal about it because I think if you play into it too much, you can get sucked into this vortex of, oh my God, I'm retaining water because it's my period this week. Sorry, your male listeners are cringing. Your male listeners are cringing. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, yes, there are physiological changes happening in my body during
Hmm.
my cycle that I have to be aware of. That's all I'm going to say about that. Like, as an
Nice.
athlete, I know I went to a big masters retreat in Oakland, California, uh, 3 years ago now, run by Juggernaut, and it was all masters athletes. And I was so excited to speak to the female coaches when we had Q&A. You know, my first question was, how do you deal with your menstrual cycle and your, female stuff?
Mm.
And both of them brushed it off as, I just ignore it. And now, as they've gotten older, they've come back to me and said, you know what? That question was an important question. And we blew over it because at the time, we didn't acknowledge the impact that it was having. But as they age, as they get closer to menopause, and they're more open to discussion around those physiological changes, right? They happen. It's a fact. So anyhow, really fascinating subject, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to dive a little deeper since I knew you said
You're
you didn't want to bore us more with it, but I mean it's really interesting because I've read about it, I've been lectured on about it, but never from the perspective of I've heard it from researchers and I've heard it from athletes, but you have a little bit of both as someone who's also a trainer who works with real human beings. So knowing that there's these type of things to work around a monthly and be and come in there. What sort of adjustments do you make? Are there supplements or adjustments to training that you'll make to your training that have kind of become unique as a female masters athlete?
I acknowledge the fact that right before my cycle begins, I have lax joints. I have less
Okay.
coordination.
Right.
I have a need for more satiation in terms of what I'm craving to eat. So, I'm not an expert. I follow a few that guide me through. Um, some months are more obvious, other months are more subtle. But what I do is I never make big PR attempts around the time that I'm about to start my cycle,
Mm.
and I time those for immediately the week after. Or 2 weeks post when I'm ovulating. For me, those are times when I'm stronger. Um, I also just modify my diet and adjust it so I eat more high fat right around the cycle to be more satiating. Um, every woman is going to be different and going to feel differently about this, but I think the key is listening to what you're hearing in your body, and your body tells you very clearly, you know, and supporting it with proper diet, proper scheduling and programming around those changes you're feeling, right? Um, yeah, I don't want to get into it with too much detail because I'm not an expert in this industry, in this field, but I can tell you that following experts, Stacy Sims, like there's been a few doctors that I've been following that I've learned so much from because they're not ignoring this like my GP likes to ignore it. They're coming right out and saying, yeah, there's an effect on your body, and here's what we can do to mitigate those effects, right? So I just think it's key not to ignore the signs your body sends you.
Thanks for that. That's
Yeah.
really unique insight. I mean, yeah, I mean people don't talk about it, and a lot of people also haven't experienced trying to lift really heavy weight with it. So our female listeners will really appreciate this.
Also, cutting weight around with your cycle, you have to remember, like for me, I can't time an event with my cycle. I've had many competitions where it's day one for me, and I know that I'm retaining extra water. Those are the days I've had to go into a soaking hot tub, 15 in, 15
Oh,
out, to sweat that last kilo out because no matter how well I've eaten leading up to that meet, I'm sitting heavy. I'm holding water. If I've not slept enough, and there's so many factors. But I think it's really important as athletes to just acknowledge that our cycle affects our training. Some months more than others, and we need to educate ourselves on what works for us to get through that. Work with our coaching. Like my coach knows my cycle. He knows my cycle. And that's one of the reasons he's one of the best coaches. He has an awareness of that and that its impact on our training, right?
would you adjust your programming based off your cycle? Yeah, like you were mentioning that.
Okay, I try not to adjust it a lot, but
Mhm.
if I'm feeling like I'm just not as strong as I typically would be, my pelvic floor doesn't feel as strong, I will definitely adjust. So, for example, if it's a set of 5, I might break it up into 3 and 2, or I might change the day and order in which things fall. But I try, quite honestly, not to make too many adjustments to what I've been prescribed.
Mhm.
But I'm more understanding of other things I can control in my day, focus more on my sleep, eat correctly, take more I take Advil. You know, I try not to rely on Advil, but there are times where it affects my lifting. If I can just take one Advil right before, it honestly makes a world of difference.
Okay, so you kind of try to adjust everything externally from the gym, but keep the programming as much as you
As
can.
close to it as possible. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I only because I like to stay on schedule. I'm not one to leave a program incomplete. You know, I pride myself on doing every single rep that's prescribed, all of my accessory work. I never skip the accessory work. There's a reason it's programmed. You know, if I was just squatting, snatching, clean and jerking, I think my body would fall apart. You know, I need to look after the whole body to support my lifting. So, yeah, I make concessions if I really feel like my cycle is affecting my lifting that particular cycle. I will adjust, but I try to leave the programming as is and do as much of it as I can.
Okay,
You know,
no.
like I don't ask my coach for different numbers. I'll just tell him that I broke it up or that I hit just under what he was prescribed and then we'll attack it next week.
That's valuable insight too, where I think a lot of clients go into a coaching relationship and I think they assume, and I run into this too, like where if you're given a program, you kind of think, well, I just have to do this, and even if it feels too heavy or too light, you don't say anything. But I think something I've learned from you too is, that the coaching relationship goes both ways, and the feedback you give is almost more like the template given to you at week 1 is kind of a guess, and then the feedback you give and the conversations you have is what makes it work really well.
Yeah, rate of perceived exertion. Like there are days where that 80% feels really heavy,
Yeah.
right? I make notes on that for Jeremy so that he's aware and he's really good at adapting. You know, like we're tweaking things as we go. We're still learning from each other. Like one of the things that Jared and I learned from each other is that unlike his other athletes that are younger, um, I like high volume. My body
Yeah.
responds to high volume. My body can work close to 100% my max reps. I can work closer to my 100 my 1 rep max than maybe his male athletes. Um, and so
Yeah.
over the years, he used to give me very little programming, and now we've come to meet in the middle where he's given me way more volume. So I feel like I get more reps in, which makes me feel warmer. I do more volume. I feel like I'm hitting better reps. Whereas before he was programming me like a younger athlete and realized, okay, that's not working because she's going and doing some circuit class right after lifting. And then she's going and training with that guy. And then I saw her on the weekend, she's doing that class. Like, I think he realized, oh, I need to give her some more programming. And conversely, I realized too that sometimes I was doing too much outside of lifting and it was affecting my lifting. So, like I said, we've met in the middle where he gives me more volume and I've tapered off on the excess extra workouts I was putting in. You know, as a master's, there's only so much I can do to be better than Karen, right? And one of the things I've decided is the one thing I can do is I can train as often as my body, like the only advantage I have over her is that I'm going to train as often as I can as long as my body can do it. You know, maybe she's doing 3 days a week, I'm doing 5 days a week and a 6th day of conditioning because I feel like the more practice I have, that's going to give me the edge that I need, right? That's the one thing I know I can do. I can keep showing up and practicing because I think Karen may only be doing 3 to 4 days a week. I'm going to do 5 to 6 days a week because that's going to be my edge, right?
Man, that's amazing. Especially like, yeah, you don't see too many people in their 30s kind of with that attitude and that have energy and just like drive for it. Do you have like any like, how do you keep up such high energy throughout the week to support those 6 workouts?
I think the key is I prioritize eating at home. We eat 95% of our meals at home, like prepared at home. We don't eat out. So I control my macros and I know what's going in, and I can control my eating. And I pride myself on eating as healthily as I can. I'm primarily pescatarian now. I haven't eaten meat since my daughter was born 18 years ago, and I eat fish for the omegas, but mostly plant-based, and that works for me. That's not for everyone. I'm not a huge fan of like intermittent fasting as an athlete. I just don't think it's sustainable. So I found over time what's worked for me, and I prioritize eating. We go to bed as early as possible. We lead a very boring life because I'm lucky, my partner and I share the same passion with the sport. So we prioritize recovery, eating, sleeping over, social outings and other adventures. Like right now, it's a priority. So that's really what I do to sustain that level of training. And like I told you, I will never schedule someone over my lifting. Like if a client really needs that time slot, I'll work it out, but I generally won't compromise on my 2-hour window to lift. That's the one thing I will never compromise on. I'll get up at 4:30 and train you at 5, but I will not give up my lifting midday. That's my time. Makes me a better coach, gives me my time, right? Even through the pandemic, Anwar, we built a platform on our patio we live in Kits, and the gym was closed. And when my partner bought me a barbell at Christmas, I was like, we don't need a barbell and plates. Do you know how happy I was, Anwar, to have that equipment when the COVID hit? So we bought a tent at Canadian Tire for $100, and we brought our equipment out every day, hand carried our 625-kilo plates outside, and we lifted 2 hours each, both of us, every day through the whole pandemic. Well, at least until gyms reopened. But I'm telling you, it was such a lifeline. In a time when nothing felt under control, that was the one thing that we still had that we could control. And I think both of us made such huge strides in our lifting during that time because we had no work. We were home. We had 2 hours plus to like take Epsom salt baths and all the stuff that we normally wish we could do. But we lifted on the patio. Our neighbors were watching from the window. The boys were calculating kilos to pounds. How much weight is that? And I would lift 10 to 12, and she would lift 12 to 2, and we would look like lunatics. But it was awesome. It was awesome that we could keep lifting at a crazy time like that.
Oh, I'm jealous of you. I think me and Pat were doing pull-up competitions at that time, and I wish we had a barbell.
I didn't have the resilience to set up a patio though, to be completely fair.
But I watched you training at home, and you put in the work, even if it was at home, barefoot on the carpet. We all just had to do what we had to do because I was unwilling to lose all that we'd gained during that time. So as much as I, made fun of Kat for buying all that equipment at the time when we had it, it was like, okay, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it seems from hearing about your whole story, like one thing I'm noticing is you really put your health and this fitness as a priority, that you really try to put as much around it with that. And where does like this motivation and fire come from, do you think? That you really try to live your life around being this great athlete?
I think, first of all, I never used that word for myself. So I think when I finally started to say I'm an athlete, it got me excited because, I told you earlier, I never say never anymore. That's my mantra in life. Like my life has taken so many turns that I didn't expect. So I never say that will never happen because you just never know. And so for me, I'm all fired up at the notion that at this age, I can still be a competitive athlete. Like that's crazy. So that and sharing the passion with my partner, like I think if my spouse was not as passionate, I don't know that I could be as committed to my sport. But because we share the same ridiculous commitment to the sport, it's made it sustainable for both of us, right? Like, we're very understanding of each other's pursuit of excellence. I should add, one of the things I'm not good at is self-care in terms of like going to the physio, going to chiro, going to massage. And I think that was a mistake early on. I didn't prioritize that. And now in recent years, I'm realizing it kind of takes a village to keep this little 4'11" body together. So when I had surgery on my elbow, I started seeing a physio, and I have always seen a chiro, and then every now and again we'll get a bit of body work done, and it is essential. It is. I don't do a lot of it, but I value it, and I try to put it into my life now because I think it's really helped me the last 2 years especially, right? Like, it's hard to budget that and justify it. But then I think, wow, if I'm spending money on really good produce, why can't I spend money on and really good coaching and good shoes? And, why not put some money into like the self-care side of it, right? And for me, over time, it's a combination of modalities. It's not been just chiro, just physio. It's a combination of some physio, a bit of chiro, a little bit of everything. Oh, a lot of acupuncture. All that combined has been the key for me, right? Right, Henry?
A little cameo.
Henry, right? Anyways, yeah, enough said. I don't know. Sometimes I think if Kat wasn't as crazy as I was about this sport, I don't know if I'd still be doing it. But the more personal growth we see, the more we commit to the sport. Like, we both have gotten so much back out of it. And I also love our community. We have a great group of lifters. We lift. We sadly don't get to see them every day like we used to, but on social media, we stay in touch. And that little bit of community is really cool. Like, only a weightlifter really gets what another weightlifter's feeling, right? Right. So it's a fun community to be a part of. And, going to a meet and having, especially masters meets where you hear like, go mom, get it, grandma. Like that's what's better than that, right? What is better than that?
You honestly, I mean, I hope you guys keep going for a very long time. You've definitely kept me
too,
going.
Kat.
I mean, I mean, I'm overrated. You do amazingly, and I think it's all those habits you have. Like, you keep showing up, and I mean, I don't think I ever hear you complain at all about lifting, even when your elbow literally has bone sticking out of it. Because I think you completed Pan Am's with the bone spurs.
With the injury,
right?
yeah, I did. It was insanity. And I had the full support of my coach, which also sounds crazy, but we at that point had I had a CT scan? No, we didn't have a full confirmation. We had an X-ray that revealed potential fracture and bone chips, but we hadn't had an official CT scan. And Jeremy said, look, you guys have been training through COVID for this moment to represent Canada. You've been chosen. I'll support you and do this with you and do the best we can. So we went in with very conservative numbers and we won. Like, if you look at the cleans, I caught my cleans, no joke, one elbow 2 inches higher than the other. In hindsight, a little bit stupid. Yeah, but there had been so much training up until that moment and we wanted it so badly. I literally would have done it till my elbow fell off. Like, I really wanted that meet. And it proved successful. We got through it. And then we took 9 weeks of no lifting. And then the CT scan confirmed what we knew. It was bad and surgery was needed. So, but I wouldn't do it any different than we did it. And like I said, it wasn't bad enough that my body, I wasn't like a frozen shoulder. Like, I was still able to execute the lifts. I was just having to modify them a little bit. But I still had some decent numbers. Like, they were Pan Am records, unofficial. But they were, decent numbers. So, yeah, we're really hungry to get those asterisks off our names this year. So we're going to Orlando for Worlds. We're going to Moncton, New Brunswick, Moncton for Nationals. And, we hope to just do it all live in person.
Man, that's kind of some BS that you have this badass story of just your elbow, like, just all blown apart, and then you break records and they put unofficial. Like, that's some disrespect. Oh, man.
You know what's so cool, Anwar? If you have a chance, on my Instagram account, there's a post I made and there's a video that's right out of National Geographic. My orthopedic surgeon gave me the video of the claw going in, grabbing the bone and extracting it. It's so cool.
Oh.
So if you're not squeamish, check it out.
That's insane. Well, actually, so after surgery, how were you able to bounce back so well? Like, I know for a lot of people, once they have a surgery, it can be a bit intimidating to get back in the gym, get back to normal life. How did you find that process?
So I went in as strong as I could. I was bodybuilding until the surgery day. And I was lucky enough to work with an orthopedic surgeon who bumped me in line almost a year ahead of everyone else because he knew that as a master's, I have a finite number of years left in this sport. And he was passionate about getting me back to lifting. So he bumped me up. He literally saw me on a Tuesday to review the CT scan. And I had Thursday surgery that week.
Whoa. You
So
don't hear that in the medical system.
but he said our system's broken, right? He said in the States you can go to a physio for sports physio and you can get surgery right away. And he sees so many young athletes literally come in at 14 and all they know is their sport and they're broken. And as the months go and they wait and wait, they lose their identity, they lose their passion. And he said, I just don't want that to happen with you. So I went in with lots of 9 weeks of bodybuilding leading up to that surgery. And then immediately after surgery, I saw a physio and my coach started programming squats right away. We had safety bar squats. I was doing one arm deadlifts. Like I literally started doing anything I could with that one arm in the sling. I think it was just 10 days after I was in the gym working out. And then he said to me, surgery was December 10th. He said, I don't know if you're going to be ready for Worlds in May. And I was competing by March. I was competing by March. Yeah, he cleared me after the post-op. I think at the 2 month mark after surgery, he gave me the clearance to just go for it. He said, "You've treated your physio like a full-time job. You've done all the work. I give you full permission. Just do it." He said to me, "Pay attention to how it feels during and after. If you're feeling like, oh, I've gone too far, then you've gone too far. Be logical here." But he was really in support of me getting back with my barbell, and the body just showed up for me. Like there's a very I have a limited extension in my elbow and flexion, but it would have been worse if I'd not worked with a physio. Anyhow, I just treated that rehab like my full-time job, right?
Wow. The I think what was written in the physical therapy and orthopedic textbooks did not expect the patient to be taking it so seriously. I mean, the joke in physio is that nobody does the homework.
No, exactly. Exactly.
So that's probably why you're able to speed it up so much. You actually did it and more. Yeah.
My partner had knee surgery and she treated her rehab and was back on the ice long before they expected her to be. Same reason. She did the homework. I think as tedious as it feels, as horrible as those stretches felt and were to do and boring, it was the only way to get back to my barbell. So I did it. And I think just being strong going into surgery also helped. I think I was also pain-free for the first time, Pat, in 4 years, right? I had always had pain and suddenly these bone chips weren't catching. So I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it doesn't hurt. For someone who lives with pain all the time, it was like, let's go. So yeah.
Wow. Blessing in disguise, I guess, to some extent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Man, that's fantastic. And it is a reminder, though, that, like, you can't really let anything stop you. Like,
No.
even with the surgeries, with everything, you just gotta, if you really want it, there's always a way. Like you say never.
Yeah, never say never. And you just said it best. If you want something bad enough, you'll prioritize it.
Yeah.
Often lifters get frustrated. They're not seeing numbers change. If you want something bad enough, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Yeah.
Man, that's exciting. So, we talked a lot about how you're gonna compete one more year. You're not done yet. You gotta get those official records. What numbers can we see from you? What are we gonna see?
Well, then you're going to know my passwords to everything.
We don't know the order.
No, that's right. And it is a mix of other things too. But essentially, I would love to hit a 60 and a 75 on the platform. These are lifetime bests. I've never snatched 60. I've only snatched 58, but I would like to snatch 60. My coach would like to see 62. And clean and jerk, I have done 75 in practice. I would like to do it in competition setting, and add 1 kilo, which would give me a total to go to senior nationals. Even just to show up with all those youngins and be like, hey, pushing 50 and I'm here. I'm here for it. That would just be the best. Even if I only lifted those numbers at nationals, just to qualify, just to say I qualified for a national level, meet would just be such an honor. But yeah, you'll see 60 and 75 for me before my career is over, for sure, on the platform. There's no question.
That is insane and can't wait to see it. And so from this conversation, I think everyone can agree you are a badass weightlifter, but there's more to you than just a barbell. How about let's get to know a little bit more about Janella outside the gym. What are the three most important things for you outside of weightlifting?
I have a really cool kid. Her name's Camille. She's amazing. She's 18. She's at Ryerson University, and she is thriving. She's having the time of her life at school. She chose to be there, even though classes are online. That was an announcement made last minute. And she's just my proudest joy. Like, she's the best life choice I ever made. Just that. She's awesome. So there's that. Two other things about me that don't relate to weightlifting.
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. I'm really proud of my nationality. So I'm Dominican and French. My father's from Paris, France. My mom's Dominican. And I moved here when I was 8 from the Dominican Republic, and felt the immigrant story. And that was, I think it's really been a great deal of shaping and forming who I've become as an adult. So that and just the fact that only my mom, dad, my brother, my sister, my immediate family are the only family we have here is a big deal. I think it's really made us create a very tight family unit. Our love is fierce, bordering on violent. It's intense. But also just perspective, right? We feel so much gratitude to be Canadian, to be here, to have the opportunities we have. So there's that side of me too. Oh geez. Another thing about me, I went to culinary school. I went to cooking school, and I graduated from De Brule. And so my other big passion is the kitchen. I tried working in the field of cooking. I worked at Culinary Capers, but as soon as it became a job, it took away the joy. So I really love cooking and baking and anything in the kitchen. It's my favorite room in the house. Is if I'm not resting on the couch, I'm in the kitchen making something.
That's
awesome. All I got. That's all I got.
I gotta say though, does she ever go to her friends and be like, hey, my mom's stronger than your mom. My mom could totally outlift your mom.
And dad.
And dad. I don't know if she has said that, but I know she's super proud of us. And she speaks about us, with pride. I think she's really proud because she's had a front row seat to the good, the bad, the ugly. She came to Worlds with me in Montreal in 2019. And my kid, she knew my numbers like I know my numbers. She had a little book. She'd been watching every practice leading up to Worlds and was so emotionally invested in us representing Canada and being at this world stage. And for me to have bombed out in essentially 3 minutes, having flown the entire family to Montreal, was quite honestly one of the most devastating moments in my life as an adult. I can tell you nothing compared to that kind of sadness and shock and just disappointment. And in the moment, I wanted to find ways for her not to feel what she was feeling and to try to make it better. But having seen what she's going through now and living through grad and COVID, and she has learned what it means to show up every day, to keep trying, even when something fails miserably. She has learned what failure looks like and how it feels. And she has learned the other side of it now, watching me go to Worlds this year and win gold. So as much as I really wish I could have saved her from feeling that pain, I also feel like it showed her in many ways what resilience looks like, because I had to swallow my pride. And I failed on the grandest scale. It wasn't at a local meet. I failed Canada. I failed on the largest possible stage in our sport. And I failed in front of my entire family that had flown out there. I can't tell you how that's fueled my passion. You asked me what keeps me showing up every day. I have to change my answer, and it has to be that failure in Montreal, because I had so much to prove. I knew that I was more than that moment, and I needed another chance to show that I was more than that failure. Yeah, that was terrible.
Gosh,
It was
and you
terrible.
clearly you came back from it, and then I mean none of it was easy after that. You're probably trying to come back, and then COVID hits, and then you find out your elbow's coming off a little bit, and
Yeah,
hey, beyond all that, you still did it.
I wasn't gonna stop, Pat. I knew that no pandemic and broken elbow was gonna stop me from having just one more chance to do it right. So, I worked with a coach, Carmen Bott, on the mental strength because I think I'd invested so much on my body and all the training. And I realized a lot of it for me that was missing was that mental toughness. So I worked with her for 8 weeks. Every Friday we'd meet and have a Zoom call, and then she'd give me assignments for the week. And we worked on really small things like breathing exercises and meditation. And then we worked on bigger things like mantras and, undoing some of the. I was the prover, and I needed to undo some of that. I didn't have anything to prove to anyone else but me. So you know what? We broke it down, and she really helped me get tough for Worlds. Like, I don't know that I would have had the kind of day I did had she not prepared me mentally. I had never spent time working on that side of our sport. I can't say enough about mental, coaching. I think it's a big piece of what we do, right? Practice every day, but if you're not believing in yourself and working on your mental strength, I don't think you can be a really high level lifter.
And it's not just about like traditional toughness and just do it. There's a lot of self conversations, and the way everybody calms themselves down is different. I'm sure the way I do it and the way you do it are
Are
very
totally
different.
different.
We'll
Yeah.
probably never probably need to talk about that because it's very,
No.
yeah, we
And
take
our
ourselves
and
to very unique places.
our self-talk is different too. Like, I don't know what you're saying to yourself, but I can tell you that simple things like a mantra can be so powerful in our sport. Stepping up to the bar and repeating a statement that really hits home can be so effective and so, for me, so profoundly effective. Like, it changed me as a lifter.
Well, to end us off today, are you comfortable sharing your mantra with us?
You know what? They change all the time, but one of them is simply, you know what to do to execute this lift. Um, you know what to do to execute this lift. Like, trust the body. I've done a million snatches. I have done a million snatches. My body knows what to do to execute this lift. And I can't doubt that for a second. I've had a multiple mantras, but that one's my current one of the week. Every time
Nice.
I step up, I know exactly, my body knows what to do to execute this lift. Let's go. Let's go. I can lift this. Even something as simple as that. I
Oh,
can lift
that all
this,
works.
right? I can lift this, right? And if you say that and believe it, sky's the limit. Yeah.
Straight. Well, to end us off, let's go across the room and we'll. Anwar, I'm catching you totally off guard here because this is unplanned.
Yeah,
What do
it's
you
your
have
turn,
when you're
Emma.
maxing out?
Oh man. I think for me, it's just like, come on, this is nothing. This is some pathetic weight. You can lift this. Like, come on. This is baby weight. Let's get it up. Like, I think I kind of try to make the weight look small.
Yes.
How about you, Pat?
Like Nike, just do it. Just
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, like, come on. It's only like 500 pounds. How can you not lift this? Anyone can.
Insane things that kind of make sense in the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Pat? What's your little secret?
Recently, mine is usually something along the words of execute or the word everything, which I'm an eternal pessimist and I just assume I'm going to fail at everything I do, which is horrible, but it can work in positive ways. So the way I like to think about it is if I'm walking up to a heavy snatch, execute means I'm going to perform the lift as best I can, heels down, full extension, punch under, and kind of go with the mentality that if I'm going to miss this lift, I'm going to miss it while giving my best effort. So if I pull it as best as I can, I get under and it just wasn't high enough, I can live with that. But what will make me mad is if I pull it, I get lots of height, but the little twitch in my mind doesn't let me get under. Or even worse, when I catch the bar overhead and it's totally fine and I miss it for no reason. So a lot of it is execute, 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 clear my mind, and then if you do the best you can and you fail, I mean, you can live with that. But when you put in a poor effort, that's what kind of lives with you, I feel.
I think the truth of the matter is we've done the work and our body doesn't need a cue at that point. We just need to lift the weight. But I think that if we get too many cues in our head, it can be very distracting, right? So anyways, I like that. Execute. I'll try that next week.
Yeah. To be fair though, I've been doing a lot of bodybuilding now, and now whenever I'm trying to get some motivation to keep working, I'm like, man, dinner's gonna taste so good after this. Like, it's gonna be so good when I'm done. Just
Dinner.
keep working.
That's your
almost
word.
there.
Food is a strong motivator. I agree. Yeah. I can't wait to eat. Yeah.
Yeah, just 5 more sets, and then you can go home and enjoy
can
that
go and eat.
pasta. Yeah.
I love that. You guys, I want to thank you because I think I was feeling kind of insecure about the notion that anyone would have interest in a middle-aged woman in sport. But you both seem so keenly interested in my answers, and I really felt very comfortable and welcome. So thank you for creating that space for me. That was really cool today.
Oh, I love to hear that. I know I really enjoyed this. I think you bring such an interesting perspective as well. Like, I'm gonna send this to my mom right away. Like, she's gonna have to listen to this.
Awesome. You know what? Even if it inspires one person, I think that's awesome. I think that's great.
There's already one, probably two in the room, so you're beating that by a lot.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for asking me.
I wish we had that conversation before I went to the gym, because I would have been so fired up.
Would have been a good workout, yeah.
Definitely. But anyways, for people who want to hear more from you, see your journey, see you crush that 60, 75 in your next competition, can they reach you?
Janella5 on Instagram. Yeah, that's where I am most of the time. I dabble in Facebook, but only because family members are on there, but I only do it out of responsibility to the family. But yeah, Janella5 on Instagram, or any Loaded Athletics. Follow Loaded Athletics. Jeremy Martin, our coach, is the bomb. He's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Jay, I've heard a lot of great things. That had the chance to meet with him. Awesome guy. Really, really great coach.
Yeah. I think he's the reason I've got this far, that's for sure. Thank you too. Lovely to meet you both.
Lovely to have this conversation. Thank you. And to all of our listeners, thank you once again for another episode. Be sure to share this episode with all the people in your lives. Let them know that 30 is nothing to go away from. You can still achieve so much in that age. There's no such thing. As you said earlier on, 30, it's the new 20. Forget 30s.
Exactly.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
With that being said, everyone have a great week. Natty News out.
Natty.